Welcome to Gatecrashers, a podcast dedicated to kicking open the door to your next favorite thing. Our mission, our creed, and our code is this: to make all things nerdy more approachable and accessible to everyone. We want you to find a universe that you'll fall in love with. I have to tell you, this is one of the episodes I'm most excited about because I finally really get to dig into Aquaman. We are joined by Brandon Thomas, who is writing Hardwire and the upcoming series Aquaman the Becoming, and then Aquaman plus Green Arrow, Deep Targets.
Yes. Hello. How you doing, everybody?
Hi. I'm Dan. I use he, him pronouns.
I'm Brandon. He, him.
So, Brandon, how are you?
I'm doing pretty well, man. I have a lot of cool things that I'm working on, so it's a very exciting time for me in DC Comics, and I feel like a lot of people are going to be pretty excited when they see some of the things we've been working on these last few months. So we have a lot of cool stuff coming if you are an Aquaman fan or a fan of the Aquaman family in general.
Yeah, it's been a great time since Infinite Frontier started for like Batman and other characters, but it's been a while since we've actually gotten the most important family in the DC universe, the Aqua family.
All right, there we go.
I've never made that secret. And you actually wrote the Future State stories for Aquaman as well, which were incredible because we got to see, you know what? This one's not even on the script, but I do want to ask you, how was it writing these two characters who haven't been interpreted in the future yet? Like, you're the first one to write Andy as an adult, to my knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
How was that?
It was really exciting when we got when I got involved with Future State. I think I came in a little late. I was probably one of the last kind of writers to join Future State. So it was really, they gave us a lot of leeway, right? So, and typically when, the major companies, they do these initiatives, that's always how it starts, right? You always start with just do anything, anything that you feel really excited about, anything you feel very, strongly about, like this is the canvas for you. This is the opportunity to really do something cool and unexpected. And anytime I hear that personally, as a writer, I'm like, we'll see. Like, okay. I'm like, you said that. So I'm going to do everything I can to really push that forward. And to their credit, both with Future State Aquaman and then the Future State Outsider story I did for the Batman group, they were very, very open to, kind of like new perspectives, new kind of twists and reveals. And it was a very, they were very open. They were as open as they said they were. So that was super exciting for me. And like you said, no one has written Andy as anything but a toddler. I actually got to write her as a toddler a little bit, which is also super cool. But it was really exciting to get to write, some of the first stories with her on kind of like coming into her own as a young hero. And I just always loved, one of my favorite comics ever is the super cool Batman and Robin run that Grant Morrison did with Frank Whiteley and a number of amazing artists. And that dynamic has been something that I've always loved. So I think Jackson and Andy's dynamic wasn't quite as antagonistic as as any partnership involving Damian Wayne would be.
Yeah.
But I did have that in mind. And I think we came up with a really kind of balance where you could tell that there was, there was mutual like respect and care and love there. But, it is, a young hero with an even younger kind of sidekick that doesn't like being viewed as the sidekick. and, has a very strong attachment, like most of our audience does, to the idea of Arthur Curry is Aquaman, period. So I didn't want to try to avoid that conversation, that discussion. Mm-hmm. So I really kind of used Andy in certain scenes to kind of voice those kind of frustrations, or kind of put that idea out there to Jackson's face, actually, that, she didn't think that he was, quite worthy of being called Aquaman. So it was really fun getting to work with, them together. And to me, that was the draw of it, this relationship mm-hmm. between a young hero who has taken on a mantle that sometimes he thinks that he doesn't quite fit or isn't fully worthy of. And then, an even younger, hero who, as many teenagers, thinks that she knows everything and she has the entire world figured out. And this was a way to show that the effect, the positive effect that they had on each other, even if they weren't fully aware of it, in kind of like, the immediate, mm-hmm. Their immediate relationship, because it seemed very antagonistic, but I wanted it to be where you discover over the 2-issue series that, they have learned a lot from each other, and they have been bettered and improved not only as heroes, but as people from their relationship, even though right now it's at a little, kind of interesting, intense point. So it was awesome.
I gotta say, you just blew my mind with the comparison to Damian and Dick, because I kind of felt that. I was like, wow, this dynamic works so well as like a big brother type situation, but a lot healthier because Damian is Damian.
Right. So obviously it's not that, but just that idea of the junior partner mm-hmm. believing that they are just as capable or just as knowledgeable as the senior partner, is something that really made that particular relationship work. Because, typically with Batman and Robin doesn't think that he knows better than Batman. Yeah. But in that case, that was a Robin who was absolutely convinced he knew better than his and especially that Batman. Yeah. So that kind of idea where, a lot of Damian's kind of attitude was around this idea where he's like, you're not Batman. He's like, you're Dick Grayson. You're Robin. You're not Batman. So, So it's a little of that, not quite as antagonistic, and I wanted there to be a lot more, kind of, for a better, for lack of a better word, love there, because these are two young heroes that have essentially kind of grown up together. So
So you can always tell how excited I am for an interview if I break the structure.
Okay.
So typically we start off with a pretty hard-hitting, heavy journalistic question. And now you're going to have to answer it. I hope you're ready. Okay. What's your favorite sandwich?
Favorite sandwich. I can only pick one, right? I have to. Okay. I would say like a chicken pesto with fire roasted tomato or fire roasted peppers, actually. So I would say that. I would say I'm a big fan of chicken pesto. Nice Swiss, maybe some mozzarella. I'm a huge fan of a good chicken pesto.
So, Jackson, back in the present time.
Yes.
So this is Jackson's first solo outing, if I'm correct.
Yes, I believe so.
Other than Future State. While he's had some great writers who have written him, it kind of feels like you're shaping this character as a solo character for the first time. How does that feel?
It's a lot of responsibility. I take it really seriously, and I think you are right. And there's always for me personally, there's always an additional responsibility whenever I'm doing Black or brown characters, especially for the major companies, because I know that sometimes that opportunity is there. Let's just say there will probably be very few kind of Black writers of like Jackson Hyde stories.
Mm-hmm.
So I do feel that it's very important to kind of establish kind of like a baseline for his kind of personality and the way he reacts to certain things and just the way that he is going to be depicted in the series. I'm always very cognizant of the kind of imagery that the kind of Black and brown heroes are allowed to basically express in these stories. I've said this, I said this a lot, but I'll say it again. One of my big pet peeves about kind of mainstream comics, mainstream genre material in general is sometimes you get a lot of shrinkage when it comes to stories featuring Black and brown characters. You get, for as much as I love Luke Cage, for instance, there's something that really bothers me about how his kind of like purview, his environment, his scope of operations, is just like Harlem. I mean, it's that's a bit of an exaggeration, but I think kind of what I'm saying. And so I feel a responsibility, when I have an opportunity to get my hands on these characters to make sure that they are not kind of limited in any way. So anytime I have a character, like Jackson Hyde, you can see from that Future State story, it's like he's, they kind of accidentally wander into this kind of dimensional portal. So they're going to all of these different worlds and interacting with all these different kind of environments and cultures and species and villains. And, my Black characters are like always traveling through time. And so I just want to try to make sure that Jackson and his kind of scope is never limited. I want people to be able to have those, visual moments that are like, wow, like this is like what you expect from like a superhero book, like a top flight superhero book. And so that I just really want to challenge myself to always kind of expand where the characters can go and where they can operate. And, I think that that's really important. I think that that's something that's just personally important to me. And I think that it's something that comics needs, in general, as we kind of make these course corrections and continue to build like a better industry and better publishers for us all to enjoy and interact with.
Absolutely. And I think it's super important that young readers have someone they can see that looks like them. Like there's enough heroes that look like me. There's more than enough. Yeah. So like it's very important when a story like this comes along that it has the right writer. And your answer was
hopefully I am that writer. I'm doing everything I can to be that writer and to be respectful, but also to not just be like, oh, okay, well, it's Jackson Hyde, and it's like it's like the Black Aquaman character, and it's like he's not that. I mean, that is part of what he is, but that is not the entirety of what he is. So it's my job to make sure that he is as three-dimensional and kind of emotionally resonant as possible. And I think, what kind of really worked for me with Future State was just kind of a feeling of failure and responsibility. He kind of gave himself, well, he didn't give him, essentially Arthur and Mera kind of gave him this job, but he took it, very seriously. Like, my job is to make sure Andy gets home to her parents. Like, that's the job. Yeah. On top of everything else. And it was something that he failed at. Well, he believed that he failed at. And it was for him that story is about the realization that he gave her everything that she needed to survive and ultimately, find and rescue him. So, that is it was very important to me. And I just want, I want Jackson to feel like a real character. He makes mistakes. He has, feelings and ambitions and shortcomings that he's trying to, desperately overcome. He has there's a little bit of kind of imposter syndrome with him, kind of taking on this mantle. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a line of people, that are basically standing around waiting to tell him that he's not Aquaman or he's not good enough to be Aquaman. And so it just so happens that his partner sometimes is at the front of that line. So it's been pretty exciting, and I just want to make sure that I'm leaving Jackson in a space, so whenever there's the next writer who is responsible for his stories, that they will have a lot to work with, and he'll feel kind of fully fleshed out and three-dimensional, and he'll feel like someone that can make mistakes or make the wrong decision and still be kind of relatable. And I just feel how we deal and manage quote unquote failure, I think is just very important, just as human beings. So that tends to be a theme that shows up a lot in my work. Like, how do people deal with failing at something? Like, how do they come back from that?
So with all that talk about Jackson, like with these real emotions, what do you think is the driving factor in him that makes him want to be a hero?
Oh, his father.
Yes, there we go.
Father. I think that his father being one of the DC universe's greatest villains, and personally kind of like the scourge of Arthur Curry and many parts of his family. I think that is the driving force, and you will see that even come to play even more in Becoming, where he is forced to embrace certain parts of his father that he would rather leave behind, or he would rather ignore and pretend that they're not a part of him. But I think for him, the driving force is proving that he's not like his father, proving that he's better than his father, and trying to undo some of the harm that his father has done, both to the Arthur and his family, kind of like on the micro level, but on the macro level, the world. So that is absolutely his driving force. And as someone who has anyone that's read my creator-owned book called Excellence can tell I have my own complicated laundry list of father issues. So this is something that's a particular theme and emotion I feel very, very strongly about, and very, very equipped to write stories about.
So clearly it's something that he's going to struggle with internally, but do you think that Jackson thinks there's still a chance for his father? Or do you think he believes that he's just a lost cause?
I would say he wants to believe that there's still, that there's still good in him, to borrow to borrow a famous line and sentiment from another famous franchise. I think he would like to believe that. I think that at this point right now in his life, the way that he is dealing with the problems between him and his father is an isolation. I think that right now what's working for him is, he kind of has his father like in this little box and like tucked away somewhere.
Yeah.
And a big part of his series is going to be, maybe there's something in that box I need, and how do I go in it and still and still kind of be me, still remain, the person that I think that I want to be and I think that I need to be. And I think right now he thinks he's kind of compartmentalized it and that it's kind of taken care of. But just like in real life, we believe that, but then things happen and that stuff comes right out of the box and you are right in the same kind of space and mindset you were when you kind of filed it away. So, but I think that he does, I think deep down, just personally, I think he would like to have a relationship with his father. And that is kind of impossible because of how his father is and what his father is always doing. So I think that to him, in his mind, he's like, if he stopped being him, if he was just like a little less him, maybe we could have a relationship. But right now, it's it's not where he would like it to be.
So Jackson is the mentee of his father's worst enemy.
Yes.
What does Aquaman, the title, mean to Jackson?
I think it means acceptance and approval. And it means a lot to him that he has been accepted by the Curry family because of all those things you just said. I mean, Black Manta is Aquaman's greatest villain. And the fact that he has been accepted and embraced, kind of separate from his father means a lot to him. It means everything to him. The fact that they can separate him from his father. They understand that Jackson is his own person and his own man, and he has his own feelings and ambitions and, and kind of, he has his own kind of worldview that is his. Mm-hmm. So to him, to be able to even use that name in any real credible way is just it means the world to him. And a lot of you also see this too. A lot of that acceptance is also connected to his sexuality. So the theme of acceptance is a huge one for this character, just in general. And that theme of acceptance is something that he's looking for in several different facets of his life. And Arthur and Mera, especially, you'll see that there's a special bond between Jackson and Mera that I've loved writing. I love writing Mera so much. I mean, I knew I was going to, but it's one of those things. It's one of those fun things about writing. You don't know like which characters that you're going to gravitate. There's always a character that you gravitate to that you didn't expect to.
Yeah.
And Mera was definitely like that for me. And there is one of my Aquaman editors always compliments me on how I write anger, that I write anger very well. And that fits in with Mera very, very easily. I find it very easy to write, just how I find it very easy to write about Jackson and this kind of, angst about his father and will we ever have a real relationship? And, is it too late for us? It's very easy for me to write like an angry, self-righteous, just like take no, what, Mera. And, she has a couple of really cool moments in The Becoming that I'm excited for people to see. There's a little taste of it in the Aquaman 80th anniversary story that I did, which is essentially a prequel to The Becoming. But I got to have a couple of cool moments with her, both as like both as a kind of like a fighter someone that's attacking her child and her essentially her. I don't know if Jackson would be like her. I don't know what they would consider themselves if they're. I don't because I don't know if like brother is not right, but you know what I mean. But
yeah. Listen.
I love.
You're the one making the relationship. You can say whatever you want. I am actually so excited that you said that because I have a question here about. I would go so far as to say that Mera is also a mentor to Jackson. And
oh yes, absolutely.
I wanted to ask, what traits do you think that he kind of takes from her rather than from Arthur?
Oh, one thing that we're going to play with is their shared history because they come from the same place.
Mm-hmm.
So something that we're going to deal with a lot is this Atlantis versus Zebel divide, and they have a connection to that space that Arthur doesn't share.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a way that, and I'll be very honest that I am projecting a little of the kind of kind of like racial social issues that are sometimes found in this country, in this world, unfortunately. Yeah. So there is a way that certain Atlanteans react and treat people from Zebel that is something that the two of them share.
Yeah, I mean, in the past, Atlanteans haven't been the best, like Garth with his eyes, and it's kind of racist. Like that's just kind of how they've been.
Yeah. So there is a lot of that. So that is a big part of their mutual connection, and I like how it really how it kind of starts as kind of a racial metaphor, but then it changes into something else because it doesn't work with mm-hmm. those two characters. So it's very important to me that there are people in Atlantis that treat Mera and Jackson differently than they do everyone else. And it really kind of works, that they're mm-hmm. technically different races, but Atlanteans essentially treat them the same because they're from this kind of, this like kind of other place. So then there are a couple of really cool moments where that is actually referenced, where this just constant, it's just kind of like sometimes there's a lot of kind of, dirty looks mm-hmm. that come from, being like a brown person in America. And, obviously it's not all the time. It's not every single person that you will see or, have a tiny moment with, but it's there. I mean, it happens quite a bit. And I did want to kind of inject a little of that into this relationship and use it as a way to kind of strengthen it. So because Jackson and Mera have this kind of addition, they have this understanding between them about being from Zebel and how certain people in Atlantis feel about that. Their connection, they just it's a different thing that that kind of like makes them closer in a lot of different ways. So that is something that you'll also see play out in the book. This kind of Atlantean, Zebel divide and how kind of deeply ingrained it is in certain parts of Atlantean culture. Like, there are some people there that are still just like pissed off that her and Arthur are like even together. They just find it.
God. Yeah.
They just don't like it. And even if they can't express exactly why they don't like it, we kind of know why they don't like it.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of that, she's not, she's not good enough. She's not from here. She's not really like us. So, we're going to be playing with that a lot. I always want to, I'm obsessed with action. So there's going to be a lot of, super cool action sequences in this story. But whenever people are not hitting each other, I always want to find the most kind of dramatic, emotional. Like I want, I want the whole thing to feel like it's like a big action piece, but it's not. But in one piece of it, it's really like, like I wish they would just leave us alone, right? Like I wish they would just let us live and stop frowning at us and stop assuming the worst about us at every turn. So
in issue 1 there's this quiet, I'm not going to spoil anything, but there's a quiet moment between Jackson and someone that just is like a very human moment, and I've been seeing that a lot in your writing. That is something I very much adore. And
thank you.
During that I love the action stuff, but seeing I love Jackson. I think he's the best thing that's come out of DC in a very long time.
I agree with you.
Personally, it's important not only to have black characters, but also to have queer characters, and he's both. So I try to be professional in these interviews as much as I can, but like sometimes I'm kind of like want to mutter like hell yeah under my breath when I hear these answers because I'm so excited.
Thank you.
So with Aquaman as your mentor, you get a little bit of a different type of legacy and politics to tango with that vary from like if Batman's your mentor, because if Batman's your mentor, your parents are gone. Now, that comes with protecting not only the cities of Atlantis, but the ocean as well. How do you think Jackson will handle those abilities? Those responsibilities. Sorry.
I think that his history, and I know what scene you're talking about. I really love that scene. It said, my goal with the first issue is basically, who is Jackson Hyde? What is important to him? Because I loved my little 2-issue Future State story, but I recognize not everybody read that. And also that was kind of a Jackson Hyde that was in the future. So he was more, fully formed, more developed, more kind of confident and more self-assured than this version of him. Like this is a version of him that's kind of on his way there. But I just feel that his history gives him a level of kind of empathy and consideration for people that should make him an awesome hero. The fact that his father is clearly one of the most kind of heinous, diabolical, evil people that really exists in this space. And the fact that it's so important to him to prove that, that he is not his father and that his father's destiny is not his own, and that he can control and harness and manage this kind of what he feels like this darkness that's a part of him. And also, some of the stuff I was saying about him and Mera and Zebel, the feeling of, being an outsider or being made to feel like he's an outsider, I think is something that is going to serve him extremely well as he kind of grows into this role and he interacts with more people. He interacts with more kind of, different parts of the ocean and different cultures, because as you can probably get from my Future State story, I am very, very interested in that. I am very interested in dealing with kind of the scope of the ocean. The ocean it's terrifying to me, right? And I'm really trying to lean into those feelings and those sensations of like not knowing what's down there. And it feels like scary and dangerous. And I really want, I want Jackson to be able to experience those emotions as well. But I think his history has him, I think he's well suited. He's a person that he's had to work extremely hard for everything that he has. Nothing was, even this, nothing is ever handed to him. there was always a situation where he felt like he should do more, or he wasn't accepted or respected in ways that he felt like he deserved. And so I think that will make him a very, very effective hero and an effective kind of ambassador for the kingdom of Atlantis.
Yeah, and talking about him and his father as like two sides of the coin is like his father, he's not even like diabolical. He's just ruthless. Like he kills without remorse. And seeing what you've written so far with Jackson and the feelings of empathy is a very interesting exploration of not becoming like the ones who came before you, like not becoming your parents. So I think it's such an interesting dynamic. And I know we're talking about the ocean and those types of things. And Jackson grew up kind of landlocked for a long time. And now he has open access to the sea. How do you think his relationship has changed with water as a whole?
I think in certain respects that a lot of things that are happening with him are basically, they mean freedom to him. And I think that you see that a lot in his powers, and especially his relationships, especially with his mother. There was a long time there was a long period of time where their relationship was also not what he wanted or needed it to be. There was a period of time where his mother encouraged him to essentially hide who he was in order to keep him safe and keep him protected and keep him from standing out. And I think that is a very real, relatable fear, especially for parents. You just want, your kid to fit in and not be harassed and not to feel, ostracized. So I think that fully embracing, kind of like the surface world and then beneath it means freedom to him. It means that he really gets to be Jackson Hyde. Like he gets to be like the real Jackson Hyde now. He gets to work in both of these spaces. He gets to try to figure out how to manage, Atlantis versus Zebel, the surface world versus the ocean. And I think it just means freedom to him. I think it means that like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, this is what I've always wanted to do. And, I've always wanted to be, quote unquote out. I've always wanted to live, as myself without having to hide things about myself. And I think it's very, it's very intentional that we have a big that we have a little sequence in the first issue where it shows you what people feel and think about him. People that don't know him or just know him as, Jackson Hyde. So it was very important to show that kind of thing. And like I said, it all goes back to his father and how his father is, and kind of finding and forging and solidifying this other path and deciding that I'm not gonna be anything like that. Like I'm just not. That's not who I am, and so that's not who I'm gonna be. So I think that there's a lot of challenge and adversity coming for him, but I feel like I want to write a hero who feels like he is he's up to this challenge, that he can be challenged and he can get knocked down and beat up, which happens quite a bit in this series. But he will always come back, and when he comes back, he will always maintain who he is. He will always be Jackson Hyde. He's not going to lose himself, even when things go badly for him. He's not going to allow himself to be turned into to someone else
Yeah.
by the adversity that he has in front of him.
So it sounds like a lot of this story is Jackson finding himself, and as cheesy as it is, he's becoming.
Yes.
Now, before we get on to Arthur, poor Jackson has had terrible luck of it with boys. Do you think he's ready to explore finding companionship, or is he more on the path of just discovering himself?
I think you're gonna see some of that in the series. You were gonna see him trying to basically find it's something else that he's trying to find out about himself. Like, what does he want from a partner? He has he has this dysfunctional relationship with his father that he's put away in a box, and I'm sure everything's just going to stay there and everything's going to be fine there, right? And he has this great relationship with his mother that's really working. He's got like a great, he's got great mentors, and Arthur and Mera. And so there's this other part of him that's like, oh, well, how is this gonna work? And and it's a little kind of awkward for him, because it kind of like his reputation is preceding him. So he's kind of got that, like, is this happening because of like Jackson, or is this happening because of like, Aqualad, like Teen Titan, like I'm the guy that like everyone in Amnesty Bay like knows and waves to and is like happy to see. So I think that will be a big challenge for him, he's at a place where he feels like his relationships are very genuine. And I feel like romantically, that's something that he's going to struggle with, and this idea that, like, is this genuine, and is this interest really about me, or is it about all of the things that are around me? Like, right. Like if I didn't have these cool powers, if I didn't have this kind of cool history and status, would you be interested in me? And then, in that way. So I think that'll be something that he's working through. So that is going to be, that is just, it's a part of him. And so it's a part of this series.
Yeah.
So
his journey. So a couple questions about Arthur. I've gotten to read the 80th, the 80th and the first issue. I absolutely love how you've written him, especially as someone who he just loves his wife, and that's awesome.
Yeah, man. That is just and without look, I know we're dealing with kind of superhero comics, and they're they're for teens, and they are they're very kind of like sexless. Here, I'll give you an example, right? So when I was getting into comics, right? I came into comics in I think it was 92 or 93. I can never remember what year. I basically came into comics with Image Comics. Like when Image launched, that was basically what the first time my father took me to a comic book store, and then I just basically fell down a rabbit hole, and this is where we ultimately ended up. So one of my favorite books at the time, like it had ended because Todd McFarlane was already on Spawn. He had moved on, but I was such like a super fan for his art. I still am. Like to me, my number one favorite artist of all time is Todd McFarlane, hands down, no questions, anything. There is something every time I see his lines, it just makes me feel good. Like it makes me smile. So when I was getting into comics, Spawn was just starting, and I had to basically work backwards because I didn't know who any of these people were. I'm like, whoa, Spawn, this is the most awesome thing ever. Like, who is this guy? What has he done? Oh, he did Spider-Man. And one of the big things from the Amazing Spider-Man run that I had to go back and find in back issues, which was like impossible because they had a bunch of Venom like appearances in them, and everyone had gone crazy for Venom, so they were like 20-30 bucks a piece.
Yeah.
But I'm getting off track. Anyway, a big part of the run that he did on Amazing Spider-Man with David Michelini, I think that's how you say it. If it's not, I'm sorry.
I think so.
A big part of that book was Peter and Mary Jane could not keep their hands off of each other. And I don't know if it was just the perfect age for me because I was like 13, 14, but it was something that I loved seeing and that I like really gravitated towards. I mean, there was a ton, I mean, that run is just packed with just, sexual, just innuendo, just like in every single book. I mean, Peter never had a shirt on, when he was, walking around the apartment, and it's like, like Peter, like Spider-Man, like barrel chest, and, and him and Mary Jane were always like jumping into bed and stuff like at the end of the scene transitions. And, to make a long story short, I like seeing that in comics. I like seeing desire in comics. Mm-hmm. I mean, I just emotionally, it's just something that like is really important to me. And the Arthur and Mera relationship is like pure, like it's just everything. It's like desire and respect and intensity and companionship. And so that is something that it was instant to me. It just felt so like I love in that, the 80th anniversary special. There's literally there's a big part of the story. Like the story can't happen unless Mera looks up and sees like Arthur with like the water. Like you should see the panel descriptions of this stuff too, because obviously in the script, I can be a little more kind of like overt because no one will ever see it. So it's just I don't know what it is, but I'm just writing these books and I'm just like, yeah, man, he's got to be shirtless. He's got to be shirtless, and you got the chest out and the abs, and we got the water like running down his chest. And Mera looks up, and she is like, "Oh, okay, all right." So that type of stuff is very important to me. So it was very important to me that I actually got a moment in there like that, where they're literally kind of like sneaking off somewhere and leaving, poor Jackson with Andy. And he's like, guys, I feel like we're getting a little too comfortable with each other right now. And then in the same story, Mera gets to show up and just destroy like some bad guys. So this is why I love Mera, because she is just everything. And I just like, to me, it just makes sense to me that Arthur would be very impressed, by his wife. I mean, she's a very impressive woman, and I want that to always be expressed and to always kind of come through. So that will be a big part. As long as I'm, writing anything Aquaman related, you will know what is happening between Arthur and Mera whenever,
I hope you get a Claremont length run on this book.
I hope so too. I have big dreams for these characters. So I'm excited to take Jackson on this on the next journey.
So
of his kind of development.
One other question before we get to our big finale. Two-parter. Okay. What made you want to team up Green Arrow and Aquaman? Like what makes them a good duo in your opinion, personality wise?
Ego. Ego. I would say that. I would say that these are two characters and two men that have very, very strong personalities. They have very, they have a healthy, I don't want to say that they're, they love themselves in certain ways, but they're very self-assured.
Yeah.
They're very self-assured. Even Oliver, and the fact that, Oliver doesn't have any special abilities. And I think to him, I think there's a little, like, I'm better than you.
Yeah.
Like, look at what all I can do and can accomplish without powers. Like, I don't need powers to be, Green Arrow. Like, I don't need special abilities to be great. So I would say definitely these are two, I try to treat them like athletes, right? These are two like high level athletes that are very, very good at what they do. And they have very, very strong opinions about, how that they are the best at certain things, and that their perspective is the best and their decisions are the best. So these are two guys that are very strong in their own ways, and kind of teaming them up and throwing them for a few loops together has been, awesome. And just the artwork that Ronan is doing is just there's gonna be a lot of surprises. I mean, I know, I'm doing so many, I'm doing a lot of Aquaman stuff now, so it's hard to pick a favorite, but I do think that there's going to be a lot of people that enjoy what we're doing with Deep Target, because it's just, let's just say, Bad Boys is one of my favorite things.
Yes, that is the energy I was hoping for.
That is absolutely the energy.
Whose will
that you are going to find. There's going to be two very hard-headed, stubborn superheroes, very set in their own ways, very specific ideas of how things should be done, and we're gonna see them. We're going to see them interact in some very, very interesting ways. So it's going to be really fun. It's one of those things where the first story that I did when I kind of like returned to DC was Aquaman and Frankenstein, and I loved writing these two together. And there's even a big Frankenstein reference in The Becoming. And I'm finding that, like, anything I do now at DC, there are like two characters that I'm trying to figure out how to, well, one I shouldn't say because it'll spoil something, but there's a lot of Frankenstein. Like, I wrote Frankenstein for this 8-pager with him and Arthur. And then I just got on this kick where it's like, oh man, I love Frankenstein. Like, if I could just have him for like a couple of panels and lines, like here or there. I was doing an interview about hardware, and they were like, oh, what DC character would you like, hardware to team up with? And I said, Frankenstein. And I'm just like, I just thought that makes no sense, but I just thought of, Curtis Metcalf, like on Mars, like in this hardware armor. And I'm like, this would be great. So, always trust in Frankenstein. Frankenstein won't be, what? I shouldn't even say that. I won't say that, because there are things that aren't quite finished yet, writing wise. So I am not going to promise that Frankenstein will not show up elsewhere too.
Before I let you go, I have to ask, if you had a Rube Goldberg machine, what would it do?
That is a tough one.
Heavy.
It would it would write my scripts for me. It's if I could figure out, it would something that would write my scripts like much faster than I'm capable of writing them. That's what I'm looking for. Anything that will, like, oh man. And I'm the more you do it, obviously, the faster and the better you get. But I always want to get a little faster. Like I'm so much faster than I was years ago. And I'm just like, can we fast forward to like 2 or 3 years? I mean, like really, really fast, because it's just, it's about like, it's just instincts, right?
Yeah.
Being able to trust that instinct and have an idea and know that like, oh, that's the one. Like that's the one. That one's gonna work. So yeah. Anything that would help me write my scripts a little faster, I would be interested in that.
This was wonderful. This was worth all of the pestering I had to do on everybody.
I told you we were gonna make it happen. It's always it's always a process, and it was right on time. Like this is the perfect time.
Perfect.
To finally make it happen.
And where can people find you? Where can they find you online?
Almost nowhere right now, because I'm trying to write these scripts. But I am on Twitter at a bwright247. That is my Twitter handle, and also my Instagram. And my direct website is brandonthomaswrites.com. So I stop in occasionally and make a comment or like a retweet, and then I go back. I'm like, oh, cool, it's a Jackson Day. We're all talking about Jackson. This is super exciting. Like, I have to go write more Jackson scripts. I really want to just stick around and just talk to everyone and interact and respond, and just talk about, this is what we're doing with Jackson. This is why you should be excited. But, there's all, the next one is always beckoning. So,
yeah,
I'm just trying to do my very best and do right by, every character that I have the opportunity to write. And I have been, connected to Aquaman ever since I came back to DC, and I hope that that remains the case. Like I love this entire family of characters.
10 more years.
I hope so, man. So I have a lot of ideas, and hopefully I will get the opportunity to delve into a lot of them. So
I'll get as many people as I can to buy it. You can find us at gatecrashers.fan and GateCrashersPod on Twitter and all other media platforms. Thanks.
Gatecrashers.